Now, this may seem a little, I guess, difficult for people to understand, but in my opinion, how is Keith Thurman ducking Errol Spence, especially when just a year ago we were talking about Keith Thurman as if Errol Spence doesn't have to pay the same dues. I am T-Street Controversy. This is T-Street Controversy Live, June the 29th, 2015, and I cover every single major fight live. So on July the 11th, 2015, on ESPN, you're going to have Keith Thurman, the WBA world champion, undefeated, versus Luis Collazo. A lot of people don't know that Luis Collazo actually won his last fight, which wasn't his defeat against Amir Khan, which was the fight before, but it was untelevised on a PBC card. So if you don't know, a lot of fans are upset because they're asking, why Luis Collazo? Well, the good thing is we'll get a lot of questions because tomorrow, June the 30th, 2015, there's going to be an official PBC on ESPN Thurman versus Collazo media call, which I will have on this channel moments, well, about an hour or so after it's over. So we'll get some answers because realistically, I think we all know at this point in time that it's not Keith Thurman's choice. Just like Danny Garcia said when it came to Paulie Malignaggi, it's not his choice. Haymon puts the fighters in front of these guys, and it's up to these guys to go out there and get the payday and beat these guys. Now, when it comes to Keith Thurman, I can understand from a marketing standpoint, okay, he had a big fight against Robert Guerrero, a fight where he's been wanting for a long time. People thought that Robert Guerrero was ducking him, but if you look at it, Robert Guerrero was basically saying the same thing that Keith Thurman is saying now about Errol Spence. It's like, well, why y'all trying to put him against me? You know, and have him get his name big off of me when he ain't paid his dues yet. So when we look at the fight that Keith Thurman was in against Robert Guerrero, he won spectacularly. We know that he'll be fighting in July and he'll be fighting again sometime later this year. So there'll be 3 fights in 2015. So, and then not to mention, he fought Leonard Bundu. Basically, he'll have 4 fights in around 13, 14 months. So with the Robert Guerrero fighting a guy like Luis Collazo at home, meaning he's fighting in front of his own audience, you know, down there in Florida, it makes financial and business sense to me for Keith Thurman. But yet, we have to ask, what's next for Keith Thurman? What about a fight with maybe a Devin Alexander or an Andre Berto? But right now, how does it make sense for Keith Thurman and Errol Spence to fight? How does it make sense financially? How does it make sense for both of the fighters? How does it make sense realistically to the fans? Errol Spence is good, but for me to say that Errol Spence would beat Keith Thurman right now, where Errol Spence is still green, and the biggest fight of his career would have been Roberto Garcia, to whereas in with Keith Thurman, you got Julio Diaz, of course now Luis Collazo, if he beats him. You know, you got Robert Guerrero, you know, you got Leonard Bundu, and I'm talking about, these are names that are known, that even if not on, you know, on a Soto Caras, even if not Diego Chavez, even if not on an American level, these names are known on a global scale, to whereas in, honestly, who does Errol Spence really have? And I've covered the last 4 Errol Spence fights. So I look at it like this. If you don't know, PBC on ESPN is going to be the first ESPN card. It's going to feature Keith Thurman versus Luis Collazo and Tony Harrison versus I forgot who. But right now, I got to say this. Listen, as much as I would love to see Keith Thurman versus Floyd Mayweather, I think we understand that it'll likely never happen. And I think Keith Thurman understands it'll likely never happen. Keith Thurman is a very smart, analytical boxer as far as he studies the game. And you can tell by the way he speaks on it and the way he carries himself, you know, in conversations and whatnot about the sport, is that he knows what he's talking about. This is a guy who is undefeated, and he said multiple times he's not afraid to lose his like if he feels that you're more powerful than him, then he has the mentality to say, okay, well, let's go. Let's do it again. What I'm going to do for you is I'm going to play a bit of an excerpt from an exclusive, well, not exclusive, it was a media day luncheon during Broner versus Porter. And I just want you to hear, like in the guy's voice, like the guy is just very, just give me a minute, be right back. By the way, I'm T-Street Controversy. This is T-Street Controversy Live with RealCombatMedia.com. And of course, as I always say, I cover every single major fight live. Please subscribe. So,